Anemoia. That is a concept that means something like feeling nostalgia for something you haven't experienced yourself. This can be a time period, or a certain game, or a certain movie that you actually haven't seen, but you feel nostalgic for. That's pretty much the feeling I got when I saw first screenshots from this game for the first time. Skald is a retro-style CRPG heavily inspired by the Ultima series, predominantly Ultima 1-5, that offers a very distinct visual style. The game looks like it was developed for the C64, which is no coincidence but a conscious stylistic choice made by High North Studios. Anders Lauritzen, the game's sole developer, used the 8-bit C64 color palette to invoke feelings of nostalgia for the golden days of old-school RPGs. And it works really well. Now, I personally have never played an Ultima game, nor was I even alive when the C64 was the technological peak of the time. And yet, when I saw the promo material for Skald, I felt this urge, this pull to dive into this peculiar looking game. I wanted to feel like I did when I first put my hands on Baldur's Gate 2 as a kid. I wanted to experience an RPG that offers a lore-heavy, interesting and rich world filled with charming but conflicted characters that go beyond typical fantasy stereotypes. I wanted to explore a dark fantasy world just waiting for its secrets to be uncovered. I wanted to be part of a story that means something, that sticks with you. And I also wanted to be challenged, to be put into combat situations that would require me to think, tinker with my equipment, try different strategies, and so on. In short, I just wanted to feel like back in the day when I played my first CRPGs. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Skald teases players very openly with its appeal. Just look at the trailer and you'll see that the game wants you to think that it's one of those old forgotten RPG masterpieces. It promises all these things that I've just talked about and very deliberately presents itself as a modern continuation of the groundbreaking and genre-defining titles of the past. These are pretty lofty aspirations. Now, the question is, can Skald keep these promises? Or is it just another shallow attempt to cash in by invoking feelings of nostalgia without really understanding the essence of the material it's trying to replicate? After finishing the game and reflecting upon my experience, I still struggle to answer this question. It's certainly no cheap cash-in, and it's very obvious how much work the developer put into this game, but Skald definitely has its rough edges, some of which can be smoothed out by patches, while others are fundamental design decisions that are at least questionable in my opinion. So let's go over some of the things that caught my attention for better or worse while playing this game. The first thing that comes to mind is the quote-unquote tutorial of the game, or rather the first 1-3 hours that you experience in the world of Skald. Here, the game puts you in an area that teaches you pretty much everything you need to know in a very smart and organic way, which is done just beautifully. You explore a tightly designed area where you learn the fundamentals for the rest of the game. Fighting, talking, questing, exploring, it's all here in this first map, and at the end of it, you're well prepared to embark on your journey through this grim part of the world, the Outer Isles. In this first section, I felt like I could be playing a masterpiece here. The game opens with a beautiful retro pixel artwork and some really well-written introduction that hooked me instantly. After a while, you have a flashback that explains your mission and the motivation of your character. I was pretty surprised how well the overall writing was done here. The plot seemed intriguing, the characters interesting, and I couldn't wait to find out more about this world and the mysteries it held. Mechanically, this first section was very promising as well. It taught me that the game had certain skill checks, for instance a check on athletics for climbing a rock wall. You can attempt to pass these checks by throwing die, or you can use a rope and permanently fix it on the wall, so you can easily go up and down without ever having to roll for athletics again. Seems pretty cool, right? I'm telling you, in these first 2 hours or so, I thought that if the game would keep going like this, it might end up as one of my favorite RPGs of all time. Does it though? Well, no, unfortunately it does not. You see, that cool flashback sequence you get in the early game that gives depth to your character and meaning to the main plot remains the only one throughout the entire game. If you expect to get more insight into your character's backstory or interesting conflict based on past experiences of your character, you will be greatly disappointed. Unfortunately, the same can be said about the game's mechanics. That neat little gimmick with the ropes is pretty useless anywhere else in the game. Aside from one or two other situations, you won't use any ropes in this game. That goes for other usable items as well. I had a shovel and a pickaxe in my inventory for pretty much the entire game, and I used both exactly one time each. When I got the shovel, my mind straight up went to all the possible situations in-game where a shovel would be handy. Maybe there would be treasure hunts or something, but no, there was exactly one side quest, one that was admittedly really cool, but that was it. The game just keeps doing this. It introduces something that could potentially be interesting and enriching for the overall game experience, only to immediately drop it after one use. Once the game had introduced its world and had taught me the basics of movement and exploration, I was thrown into battle pretty early on. Skald is a grid-based tactical RPG in which players take control over up to 6 party members who engage with enemies in turn-based combat. In other words, this is just my jam. When the first battle started and I saw the grid system and the turn order on the left side of the screen, I was just delighted. I love slow, tactical RPGs that allow you to strategize and maneuver your characters through challenging combat situations while not being pressured in any way. Take your time, make some coffee, figure this out. I just love it, and I loved it here too. This shit was hard though. The first couple of battles were brutal. I had to use everything I had, which wasn't much at this point in the game, and barely made it out of most situations alive. I had to rest again and again to refill my health, and only made little progress step by step. It kept going like this for some hours. Even after recruiting my first party members, I still struggled. The game didn't feel unfair though. I always had the option to buy potions or simply go to another area and come back later, but I enjoyed the challenge in these early hours quite a bit. That also didn't last though. You can fill your party with mercenaries if you like, or if you're like me, wait for the story-related characters to join your gang. I didn't rely on mercs and still felt like the difficulty dropped hard once I had a few party members. For the majority of the game, I just rolled through groups of enemies like a bulldozer. I played on normal difficulty, by the way. But then again, once I got closer to the end, the game got really challenging again, only to present a final boss fight that was laughably easy. It's a shame because fighting in this game is really fun. You can use special attacks, magic, range, melee, whatever you like. You can also use the terrain to your advantage. There was a situation in a cave where I was surrounded by monsters that absolutely obliterated my entire party first try. So I reloaded and formulated a new strategy. I retreated into a tunnel and put my tanks in front, my healer and thief behind, and could control the battle this way. It took a while, but I prevailed. Stuff like that is cool, and the game has multiple combat situations where using the map layout can make all the difference. Still, I felt like the game was kind of teasing me with its weird balancing and difficulty. At first, I expected some Shin Megami Tensei level of complexity, only to breeze through 80% of the game like it was nothing, only to then be thrown into some of the hardest battles you can imagine, leading to a final fight that was piss easy. What a wild ride. Of course, this journey wouldn't be worth much if you didn't care for the people who joined you in your travels. In this regard, Skald started off really strong. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Every potential party member I met had personality. Each one had some interesting background and their own motivation for joining my quest. There were more than a few situations in which a party member would join in a conversation I had with some other NPC. Same goes for story events or any interaction with the world. Party members frequently comment on stuff, and I like that quite a bit. It reminded me of the party interaction in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 in the best ways. However, you shouldn't expect the same level of reactivity as in games like Baldur's Gate. Party members rarely interacted with each other. Frankly, I'm not even sure they ever did. Also, in terms of character development, there was little to nothing happening on that front. Party members didn't have an arc, or interesting conflicts, or even dedicated quests allowing you to get to know them better. So, as with pretty much anything in this game, I had high hopes, but was ultimately somewhat let down. It would have been so cool to have actual conversations in camp, or having to settle some argument between characters, but no. They remain pretty static and superficial. That's too bad, because the character writing in general is really promising. It just doesn't lead anywhere. Speaking of writing, it didn't take long for me to be intrigued by this world. Barda, the world in which Skald takes place, is a dark and hopeless place. The Outer Isles are an especially decrepit corner of this world, and it's exactly where our journey leads us. The Isles are swallowed by an unfathomable evil, a being older than the world itself, which slowly drives the population mad. Cultists clad in dark robes perform inhuman rituals. Menacing hordes of fish god worshippers terrorize the locals and leave a trail of blood and destruction behind, and more you get the feeling that something is terribly, inherently wrong here. The place itself seems wrong somehow. This feeling is beautifully conveyed by the strong writing of the game. Every scene was depicted in a way that made me visualize it in my head. As there are no animated cutscenes but only gorgeous pixel art stills, you have to imagine all of the events described on screen in your head. And it worked really great. The writer definitely knew what they were doing here. When I bought this game, I knew it was dark fantasy. I had no idea, however, that it heavily relied on horror elements. I don't want to give away too much here, but if you like the works of H.P. Lovecraft or Robert W. Chambers, you will enjoy the writing in this game as well, I'm sure. But again, it's far from perfect. Especially the main plot left me somewhat disappointed. As I said, the story starts off really strong, but then meanders for a long while. For about 10 hours after everything is set up, there are little to no plot-relevant events. Once you reach a specific point in the game, you get a pretty hefty lore dump, the plot progresses, but before you know it, the game is already near its conclusion. Again, a more evenly paced story would have helped a lot in keeping me interested. Thankfully, Skald ends with a bang. I know some people are very critical when it comes to the ending of this game, but I thought that it perfectly encapsulates everything that is great about this gruesome world. Yes, it's brutal, dark, and maybe somewhat unfair, but it fits the tone of the game perfectly. These last few moments were absolutely fantastic and memorable for me. But alas, they cannot hide the fact that for the majority of the game, its main plot felt lackluster at times. There are some moments of genuine brilliance here, but they are just too far and few between. Even though the story had its lengths, I am glad the quest design was so well done that I didn't drop the game. Quests in general are really innovative. There are no simple fetch or kill quests. There's a story behind everything, and usually it's really well written. Also, the variety of quests is pretty high. Some are combat focused, some are more dialogue focused, and sometimes you need to solve small puzzles. I was thoroughly entertained. Quests can be approached in multiple ways with sometimes unforeseen and dire consequences. Diplomacy is a skill that definitely helps you to convince people in certain situations, but you can't talk your way out of everything. I like that. There weren't many quests that required me to really think about what to say and how to approach the situation, but there were quite a few where it really mattered what my character said. People do react to you, and sometimes refuse to keep talking if you have offended them in any way. You can also be a complete dick and pretty much attack everybody you meet. Whilst people react to what you say in conversations, they don't really care for your actions in the world. What I mean by that is that there are little to no repercussions for stealing. If you're caught trying to steal from a vendor, they will refuse to trade with you for a while, but that's it. You're not put into jail or anything. You can also steal stuff from chests and the likes directly in front of the owners, and no one cares. There was one scene where I could steal an armor, a prized possession by an important NPC. I stole it, I wore that armor while talking to that NPC, and there was just no reaction at all. It's the same story again. On the one hand, the game teaches you that everything you do is super impactful in some quests. On the other hand, you can just run around and steal everything and no one will bat an eye. At last, I want to list some of my personal annoyances that I encountered while playing Skald. I'm sure that some of them can and will be fixed in future updates, while others may only be like a pet peeve of mine. In any case, without any real order, here are my unfiltered ramblings. Number 1. Automatically leaving the area when you're at the edge of the map is just annoying. I accidentally left an area multiple times. Adding a pop-up dialogue like "Do you wish to leave?" would be a simple fix. Number 2. Why can I sell stacks of items but not buy stacks? Especially when buying arrows, this gets old really fast. Also, I can only sell a single item or the entire stack, like all of them. Old Infinity Engine games had this figured out already by putting arrows and crossbow bolts into stacks of 20, which you could sell as a whole. Number 3. Why can I put skills into heavy armor use for my Hospitaller, the game's cleric class, if they can't even use heavy armor at all? Number 4. It's too bad there are no icons for spells, which makes it difficult to find a specific spell at times. To give an example, for the spell Minor Lay on Hands, the icon just reads MIHA as an abbreviation for the spell name, but no fancy graphic. This can get really messy once you have a bunch of spells. Number 5. There is no respec for the characters at this point. I put skill points into using a club for one character, only to find out that another club-focused character would join the party mid-game, so now there was no way to turn my character into an X build or something, which is too bad. And number 6, just typos. Typos everywhere. I know that I sounded rather critical throughout this entire review, especially in the last section. So, do I think playing Skald is a waste of time? Do I think it's not worth the price? Is it just a shallow copycat that uses nostalgia as a tool to misguide players and trick them into believing it's more than it is? No. Skald is a really good game. I truly think so. Keep in mind that this game was developed by one guy. One person designed, wrote, and coded this entire game. That same person contributed the sprite work, music, UI design, everything. It's damn impressive to see what indie developers are capable of these days when given the right tools to breathe life into their vision. Skald has its problems, that should be clear by now. But it also has heart. Someone had a clear idea of what they wanted to create here, and for the most part, they pulled it off. It's a dark and mature tale, with bits of fantasy and cosmic horror interwoven into something truly novel and cool. Its distinct style, amazing sound work, and intricate writing are truly impressive, and the ending will stick with me for a while. If you're at all interested in traditional CRPGs with a focus on world building, interesting set pieces, smart quest design, and challenging combat situations, this game is for you. If you're expecting to get a game on the same quality level as like Baldur's Gate 3, and yes, I have read reviews that claim Skald would be the true Baldur's Gate 3, which is ridiculous, you'll probably end up rather disappointed. So, set forth, brave adventurer, and embark on a journey you won't forget so easily. If you liked this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you for your attention.